Stay tuned for a free lesson from this class after the trailer. I'm going to let you in on a little secret. Most of the lettering designs you'll see on my Instagram feed and in my online stores are all created using basic fonts in Procreate. In a previous pre-pandemic life, I used to work as a wedding calligrapher and lettering artist, and even then, the way I got comfortable with hand lettering and the flow of calligraphy was to trace over type fonts for my lettering practice, and the muscle memory I built up then still lives in my hands to this day. Hello, I'm Rebecca Flatty and I'm an artist and digital content creator from the United Kingdom. These days I mostly spend my creative time designing floral surface pattern designs, but I still like to keep up with adding a fresh supply of typographic designs to my portfolio too. I've licensed my patterns and illustrations to all sorts of companies all over the world, and also my lettering designs, just like this one here. The text was created using a computer font as a basis for the layout, which I then digitally painted in watercolour in Procreate, and now it's licensed on this planner. If your portfolio only contains patterns and illustrations, then you're missing out on a massive opportunity to step into licensing designs for things like planners, greeting cards or t-shirts. But I get it, when you don't have any experience in hand lettering, it can feel really daunting to get started. I totally understand the feeling of starting to learn a new skill and then instantly hating it and yourself and life in general because it's a new thing and you're not as good at it as you are at all your other illustration practices, blah blah blah. We all go through that thought process from time to time, especially when we look for inspiration on Instagram and see all the amazing designs on there. Well, that's where tracing over typefaces comes in. If you want to dive into the world of hand lettering, creating your designs with fonts and then tracing over them to add hand-drawn details is a really beginner-friendly and easy win way to get started. You'll be learning all about letter proportions and placement without having to go through blank canvas syndrome or hating your attempts at drawing letters from scratch. You'll build up muscle memory and you'll soon find that you're able to ditch the fonts and come up with your own lettering layouts. Spoiler alert, using fonts for your lettering designs isn't cheating. Graphic designers and artists use fonts every day in their work. There's no rule that says you can't add your own texture to a typeface or change the angles. In this class, you'll learn how to create these 3 lettering designs from beginning to end. We'll look at where you can find free fonts online and how to check the licenses on them to make sure they can be used for commercial work, and also how to import them into Procreate. We'll go through the text interface in Procreate and how to adjust and manipulate the text to give it a unique spin and make it look more hand-drawn and uniquely yours. I've got a really cool way for putting text on a curve and mimicking Illustrator's type on a path function, and we'll be getting lots of practice on tracing letter forms and using layer masks, clipping masks and blend modes. There's a whole lot of tips and tricks in this class that will broaden your knowledge and skill set when it comes to illustrating in general in Procreate. To take this class, you should have at least some basic knowledge of Procreate and the simple gestures. We'll go over everything as we work through the projects, but if you've never ever used Procreate before, then I recommend finding a basic beginner class first and then coming back to this one. If you're ready to get started with some floral lettering fun in Procreate, then let's go. So we've just looked at a really easy way to rotate letters around a perfectly circular arc. So now let's hide these layers and take a look at if we were doing something over an ellipse where we had maybe not a perfectly circular curve, or even a wavy line, something like this. So I'll just start this on a new layer and draw in a nice curve like that. Then I'm going to add some text to this. So we go up to our actions, add and add text. And I think this lettering style lends itself really well to the word groovy. And I want this to be a bit of a longer word though, so I'm just going to add some extra O's in there for the sake of making this big enough. So let's make this lettering a little bigger. We'll bring the size up. So tap on it 3 times to select it, and it looks like it's going to be just about long enough there to fit this curve nicely. So with this type of writing, because it's not being flipped and then going at the bottom, like with our circle, we don't need to worry about drawing in the X height as well as the baseline. I think we can probably just get away with drawing the baseline for this one, and then we'll eyeball lining this Y up with the V when we get to that part. So now I'm going to go ahead and rasterize this layer. I'm not going to bother making a copy of this one. So rather than cutting these all onto separate layers, we can just leave these all on the same layer as long as we move this up and out of the way first. So I'm going to go ahead and just cut this G out first of all. And then we'll bring that down and sit it onto the baseline. Decide where you want to start, rotate it, and we're just going to eyeball it and line it up there. And then we're just going to grab the next letter along, the R, and we can bring this one down, rotate that one, and line that one up with the baseline as well. And then we're just going to work our way through all of the letters like this. As you get closer to the point where this curve starts to flatten out, you'll find that you need to rotate the letters a little bit less each time. And actually, because with these O's we've got lots of the same letter, it's going to be quite a good visual for seeing the slightly different rotation on each one of these. So that one's kind of pointing off that way, this one's a bit further up, and this one is going to be almost straight. And then with the Y, we just need to remember to line this up with the X height, even though we didn't draw it in there. So now if we hide our guideline that we drew, you can see we've got our nice curved lettering there. If you want to make this a bit bigger, so that we go kind of further down this way and further up that way, we can just grab our lettering there and make it a little bit bigger. And then we can go back in and fine tune those and edit them a little bit more, spreading the text further down the line. And again, as you start to zoom in here, you can see we're losing more and more image quality because we're changing and adjusting and transforming these multiple times. But again, it's okay because this is our sketch layer. So this is, again, a case for tracing and in the favor of tracing and it not being cheating. Tracing is actually the smart thing to do here because if we weren't tracing, we'd be having fuzzy lettering and this just wouldn't be a viable option for manipulating the text. There we go, we can now hide our guideline. And then with this one here, because we're just eyeballing this one, I think having hidden the line, that does need to come up a little bit more this way and be rotated round. And so that is how you would line up the lettering on a curve that's not circular. You can type your text, draw your curve, and then adjust each piece to fill and then trace over it later. You can use that with lots of different lettering options. With these two tricks up your sleeve, you'll be able to create lots of wavy and or circular lettering layouts, and it will be almost as good as having the type on a path option at your disposal in Procreate. In the next lesson, we'll go back to our circular lettering and start tracing over it and adding some colour. Watch the rest of the course on Skillshare and use the link below to get 30 days free when you join Skillshare and get full access to all my classes plus all the other great classes on Skillshare.